Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy of being here. As you know, my name is Giovanni Palazzo, and I am the president and the CEO of Electrify America. Before I start, I want to give you an update about what we are doing in the US. This is a very special and professional audience, and we brought a couple of insights out of the operations that may be interesting, for the audience. And before we start, I would like to thank Christian Hahn and the Object team because they did, I think, also this year an amazing job to really build up all this, to create the stage, and to bring all these people together. So Christian, thank you very much, and thank you for hosting me. So back to business. These are really great times, as you will see. For the first time, you have really the planets that it seems they are in alignment. You have the policymakers are supporting. You have the charging networks like Electrify America, but not only us. They are increasing the number of charging counts massively. And then last but not least, you have the car manufacturers that finally are bringing the volumes into the market. Actually, I have a very clear automotive background, but I did not believe in sales projections, never, and not even in long-term sales projections. But if you think about the US, actually there is a forecast of about 2-3 million cars in terms of sales by 2025, which will be 20-25% of all the market. These are figures you can start to work on a little bit. Regarding this chart, I would suggest to you two main takeaways. The first one is that you see that the range is stabilizing well above 200 miles, which is more or less 320 kilometers. And the second is you see that there is a sweet spot in terms of battery capacity, which is going around 75, 80 kilowatt hours. This is the context where Electrify America is acting in the US. I want to give you, I call it a little bit of housekeeping, because our structure is not so easy to understand. So as you know, we are investing $2 billion for the upcoming 10 years in the US market. It's the largest investment of its kind, and it's split into 4 different cycles. We find ourselves now in a transition between cycle 1 and cycle 2. Each cycle has a duration of 30 months and a budget of $500 million. On the right side, you see the investment split. As you can imagine, the biggest portion of the investment goes into charging infrastructure. We are talking about $370 million only for cycle 1. We have $40 million in the first green city, which is Sacramento, California, and we're going to add a second green city in cycle 3. The rest of the investment goes into the effort for EV adoption and awareness in general. When we founded Electrify America, and I had the privilege to negotiate the consent decree at that time, we identified 4 main pillars that you see now reflected into the operations. The first one is that we wanted to be really customer-centric and do it a little bit different than actually was being doing in the US market. For us, the quality of the site was very important, so we targeted the national retailers in the US as the main site host. So Walmart, Target, the biggest malls operator like Bricks or Simon Properties. The second, in terms of access, which was already pretty unique, we had a credit card readers on every single charger, which was very important, especially to serve the legacy cars in the market when we started. The second is that we wanted to be future-proof. So we did not want to have any proprietary solution or the other way around. We wanted to build up a real open network. And so we focused on CCS as a charging standard, and we targeted 15.11.8 smart charging also as the next step. I'm going to talk about it in 1 minute. And of course, we are high-powered. This is one of the main USP we have in the US. We started 150, 350, depending if you are talking about a metro site or a highway site. This was pretty unique in the US. We certified the first cool cable in the US, and very important, we do not have power sharing. You will see one side from operations, which is pretty highlighting regarding this. On the right side, we are ubiquitous, so actually we have an amazing density. I'm going to show it immediately. And of course, in order to serve all the car manufacturers on the market, we wanted to be brand neutral. So this is how we turn PowerPoint into operations, and you see what is happening today already. So we are active in 42 states, 17 cities in California. We are going to build almost 500 sites by the end of this year, which makes the count of more than 2,000 DC fast chargers in the US. On the right side, you see a data which is, in my opinion, very interesting, is that the average spacing, so the distance that we have between the sites, is already now in Cycle 1, not exceeding the 70 miles in average. So where we are, and I think things are getting getting interesting now. So on the right side, you see the number of sites that Electrify America has online, customer-facing, active. So 210 sites today, this morning. So last year today, we had 1 site into operation. So we built more than 200 sites in 12 months. I want to thank my team because this is an amazing effort. And second, because this is the largest and quickest construction pace in the industry of all times. I think the second interesting data here is the velvet one. So beside the 200 sites that are already commissioned, we have more than 300 that are in a stage that we call construction complete. So it means that those sites are simply waiting to be energized. And especially for the guys who are running operations here, I think you can see which was the effort that the team was actually able to put in place. And now you see the charging curve. And you can see on the left side, the one site we had in May last year, and all the projections and the massive development until today and until the 500 site count at the end of the year. You may ask yourself what happened and why we were able to scale, especially at the end of Q4 last year, the charging curve. So I think 2 main elements were interesting for us. The first one is that we streamlined permitting in California, which is a big, big challenge. We can talk about it hours if you want later today. Yeah, literally. And the second, which is also important, we streamlined and redefined utility operations. Utility operations are utility design, easements, and betterment of work. I do not want to be too technical, but again, we can touch base later today. By, I think, streamlining these operations, we were able to not only push up the charging count, but also to maintain. And now Electrify America is a well-oiled machine, and I think we can keep that pace, of course, also in Cycle 2. This is exactly the network that you see on PlugShare today. So this is a combination of sites and stations that are already open, plus the one that we are about to open. And I think it's interesting because, as I mentioned already, we found ourselves in cycle 1, and we still have 3 investment cycles to go. And cycle 2 will start at the end of this month. And I would like to show you here what's happening in cycle 2 for us. So the first takeaway is that you see the investment on the charging infrastructure is increasing a little bit, $388 million. But the second point, I think, which is the most interesting, we are increasing the complexity, and I think, if I may say, we are getting a little bit more mature in terms of charging use cases. We are starting ride-hailing. We are entering, and we want to understand how does it work to really operate on the charging side and autonomous fleet. We're going to invest into bus and transit. There is a lot of potential there. It's very promising. And, of course, this is pretty new for Electrify America, we're going to enter the residential business. Depending on regions, you may have 60, 70% of charging use cases happening at home, and this is an opportunity that Electrify America cannot miss. I think the second information here is that we plan to have, by the end of 2021, 800 sites into operation. And I think the interesting data is that given this, we will be able to offer a net coverage which will be able to serve at least 75% of projected sales by 2022. Now I'm going to show you a couple of insights out of the operations that I think may be very interesting for you. So the first one is that you guys, most of you are in this business, so you know that we are now, of course, serving actually the first generation of EVs. But I think the interesting insight here is that despite that, more than 80% of the times we are serving cars that have CCS plug. So it means that actually the delta with the CHAdeMO, at least in the US, is going to be larger and larger and larger in the upcoming weeks and months. The second is very interesting. This is a couple of data regarding utilization. You see that in general, throughout the whole week, we are well above 10%. We have some peaks on Saturdays, so before the weekend starts. And of course, on Tuesdays, to somehow refill, and on Monday to refill out of the weekend. You can also see that the peak time in terms of hours is, there's no surprise, I think 5 p.m. Maybe more interesting is where utilization is taking place. And we have a couple of interesting takeaways here. So the first one is that, and again, I don't think it's a surprise, but this is really, confirmed by data, the fact that utilization is taking place mostly in and around metro areas. This data is being captured in May. As you know, for those who are living in the US, May is you have the Memorial Day. Memorial Day is the first, let's say, summer, official start of the summer traveling season. So this data a little bit doped, let's say, from the Memorial Day. But we have two main information and learnings out of here. The first one is that it seems we have a nice and mature selection on the site count. Second, we see a very high utilization on the highway side. And this is, again, pretty interesting if you think that the volumes in the market are still very low, and that, again, we are serving heritage cars. Someone was talking about demand charging cost, and nobody, I think, associates a cost to this. So I want to give you maybe the most interesting chart of the whole presentation. So this is real charging operations. And I want to tell you this story. This is the first time that we had 3 Audi e-trons charging simultaneously in our site in Pennsylvania. 30 minutes, customer pay was $60. The utility bill was $1,400. I repeat it again. Customer pay was $60. The utility bill was $1,400. So this is the factual demonstration that it's impossible to make any kind of profitability from charging operation if demand charging cost stays like this. So we have some good news here. The good news is that we were in Pennsylvania and not in California. Because in California, these costs are 5 times higher. The second good news is that you may have a battery here, and we are doing this on about 120 sites together with Tesla. But the battery, first of all, you need to have a very detailed NPV analysis to understand if the cost of the battery pencils or not. If it pencils, you have an opportunity to have 40% of charging mitigation cost. So you need to digest 60% of those costs because you cannot pass those costs to the customer. So this is my personal battle to really try to bring some reasonable thoughts into the EVs business, and especially on the utility side, to change all this. With Tesla, we are doing an amazing job. We are cooperating pretty much. I think Electrify America and Tesla, somehow they like each other. We're going to have a couple of other activities popping up in the upcoming months. There was one big miss out of the Electrify America operations. We did not have any app, and that was something that we resolved 10 days ago when we launched the first Electrify America app. Of course, you know, in terms of features, it's nothing. It's no rocket science. So actually, you can locate, navigate, you can check the availability of one site, you can initiate and stop a charging, you can monitor the charging session, and you have your own history embedded there. What I think was very interesting is that we introduced a new pricing scheme for Electrify America and 2 memberships. The first one is the Electrify America Pass. It's pretty simple. It's for occasional users, if you want. And the second is the Electrify America Pass Plus. We are asking customers to pay $4 per month, and in return, they get a discounted rate of about 20%, 15%, depending on region. The last takeaway here is that for the first time in the US market, we introduced tier pricing. So 175, 125, and up to 350, because we do not want to penalize customers and users that actually are using old generation of cars. So I'm almost done, and of course I'm happy to get your questions. But I want to sum up a little bit, what happened at Electrify America in the last 12 months. So we acquired 500 sites in 80 months. And if you know, and I told you already that we are giving to quality of the site a very high interest and priority. So for this reason, we put into the funnel, so we analyzed and processed in terms of quality 12,000 sites. Out of those, we selected the 500 we're building up now. I talked already about the more than 200 sites that we were able to build in only 12 months. We deployed the first 350 charger, both in California and on a federal level. And last but not least, because of course we are here today, I think we are cooperating greatly with the Object team in the US and here also in Germany, because we are going to implement ISO 15118 in the US market by the end of the year, which is a great, great challenge. But we are, somehow keeps on confirming the kind of innovation that we are bringing into the market. So that's the team. It's pretty small, As you can see, you miss a couple of people here, but we are more or less there. And this is fascinating. This is sometimes very hard, sometimes very frustrating. But I think Electrify America is really creating impact in the US, first. And second, we are maintaining the promise of increasing EV adoption in our market. So I thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.